was originally born in New York. I live in Hagerstown, Maryland now. That's where I'm fighting out of, Hagerstown, Maryland. So, Phil Ferraro is very explosive, fast, good cardio, great wrestler. Very explosive on the striking as well. Weaknesses, I think my jiu-jitsu is better than his. So I'd say if it goes to the ground, I think I have better submissions, he'd have better control, maybe equal ground and pound. Striking, I think our striking styles are a little different. I'm going to try and stand I'm going to be on the outside more. I'm the taller fighter in this fight. He's a shorter one. He's got to get inside. So I think every fighter sees it ending the same. Everyone's going in there to win. You're fighting to win. I'm not fighting to lose. We're both grapplers. He's a good wrestler. I'm a good jiu-jitsu guy. Realistically, I see this fight going to the ground, and I'd like to get a submission off it.
Here he comes out of the blue corner, Brandon Wheeler, sporting a 1-2 record, weighing in at 135 pounds. He's out of Hagerstown, Maryland, representing BJJ Academy. Jackson, Brandon Wheeler, tell us.
Brandon Wheeler accomplished as a mixed martial arts fighter, but even more so accomplished as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor. He's a Maryland state champ. He's won all sorts of national titles in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so what makes this fight really interesting for me is how he's going to match up with Phil Ferraro, who also comes from a very, very strong grappling pedigree. So oftentimes we see when two really strong grapplers get together, it stays on the feet. I'm hoping that we see some really slick grappling transitions and attacks in this fight.
And he said in the back, he wouldn't mind a stand-up battle, but judging by things, he knows it's going to hit the ground eventually.
It absolutely will. I mean, that would be my prediction. Phil Ferraro is tough, and Phil Ferraro has been training with a new team and learning some new skills, so we'll see if his game's changed at all.
All right, let's introduce Phil Ferraro.
Phil Ferraro from Easton, Pennsylvania, fighting out of Sparta, New Jersey. I know he is from Maryland, a jiu-jitsu guy, real good on the ground, tough. Looking to put him up against the fence, elbows, knees. I'm just gonna win. My hand raised, knockout. Staying focused, keep running through the game plan in my head. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for always being there.
And here he comes out of the red corner, Phil Ferraro, like we said, 135 pounds, age 27, standing at 5 feet 3 inches. He represents Miller Brothers MMA. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's sporting the 1-1 record. Now, the Miller Brothers MMA program, that is a tight-knit program, tons of pros and studs in that gym. Can you tell us a little bit about Phil Ferraro?
Well, Phil Ferraro's bounced around a little bit. I remember fighting on an amateur fight card in New Jersey in 2006 with Phil Ferraro, who must have at the time been 18 years old. He was just baby-faced and all fresh to the world, but he's been racking up the experience through the years, training here, training there, but he said he's found a really good home at Miller Brothers MMA, and I'm excited to see in what way his game's developed. I've been following him through the years, never one to back down from a tough fight, so he does have his hands full with Brandon Wheeler tonight at Global Proving Ground.
And speaking of Sean Shorty Rock Santella, we see that pink hair in Phil Ferraro's corner. He is a solid cornerman with Sean Shorty Rock today.
Sean Shorty Rock's the man. I mean, he's an expert at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
This fight in the 135-pound weight class. To my right, we have a 24-year-old who stands at 5'8" and has a 1-2 professional MMA record. That includes a victory right here at GPG 18 back in February. Representing Hagerstown BJJ Academy out of Hagerstown, Maryland, in the blue corner, Brandon Wheeler. And to my left, we have a 27-year-old who stands at 5'3" and has a 1-1 professional MMA record. Representing Miller Brothers MMA from Easton, Pennsylvania, in the red corner, Phil Ferraro.
Be like a man all the time, protect yourself all the time, good fight, touch your gloves. Thank you.
Vitor Ribeiro, such an assassin, so soft-spoken, but one of the legends in mixed martial arts, now running an academy up in New York City. But one of my favorite fighters is Vitor. He's since been retired, but it's really cool to see him cage side right now.
Absolutely. Now the fight starts, and we got Phil Ferraro in the black trunks, and we have Brandon Wheeler in the red trunks.
You know, Phil Ferraro is doing exactly what he said he wanted to do, which was make this fight dirty. And, you know, push him up against the cage, grind him out with knees and elbows. I'm impressed so far. Getting a takedown on a BJJ champion is no small feat.
Now, both of them are phenomenal with their jiu-jitsu, but when we talked to Phil Ferraro in the back, his prediction was first-round TKO. I'm starting to see that a lot more, Jackson. When people, they have a comfort zone on the ground, but you know what? They want to get something off their bucket list. They want to get that knockout and stop it.
There's a romantic thing about knocking somebody unconscious, or, you know, with the submission, they tap, they get out of the cage, and it's shoulda, coulda, woulda. They can still talk a little bit of trash. Oh, you caught me here, you caught me with that. But with a knockout, it's definitive. I mean, that person is unconscious and literally saved by the ref.
You got Phil Ferraro. He's trying to pass, but it's to no avail right now. It's looking like Brandon Wheeler has great control on the ground, but Phil Ferraro is trying to grind.
You know, Wheeler's doing a really good job here, using his feet on the hips as sort of a defensive guard, and then quickly switching to a high guard when he's looking for that armbar or triangle. And it looks to be a knee bar attempt here, but Phil Ferraro has seen this before. He's pretty savvy on the ground, and Wheeler giving up a huge position and letting Ferraro take his back.
Now, if you were both these fighters, what would you think is your clear chance for victory?
I think at this point, Wheeler's sort of realizing that, you know, as good at jiu-jitsu as he is, there are people out there that are just as good or better. And so he may not be used to getting thrown around a little bit on the ground. And if that's a realization that he's having right now in the cage, that can really throw him off his game. But I hope he's got the experience right now to get himself out of these positions.
Like you said, if he's getting that experience now, that's the worst time to get it in the cage. You would think you'd want to get that accrued in training through time. You don't want to get the experience while it's happening.
Well, when you're one of the toughest guys in the gym and you've been a really tough fighter through your amateur career, when you get to the pros, everybody's tough. And you're going to be in some really dangerous and sticky situations, so it can be kind of a wake-up call.
And while we were talking to Wheeler in the back, he was just a happy-go-lucky guy. When we asked his prediction, he just simply said, I'm just looking for a win.
You know, I think that's a pretty healthy attitude to have. You train hard. You can really only hope for the best by the time you step into the cage. All your preparation is complete, and you got to, you know, there's an element of just going in there and rolling the dice because it's so crazy and so unpredictable. Anything can happen.
And it's also risky calling your shot, as we just saw in the first bout, because he called a shot, knockout 30 seconds, wound up getting submitted in the first.
Well, there you go. And this is exactly what I wanted to see from this fight. I mean, some strategic grappling here. Now, a lot of mixed martial arts coaches would sort of shy you away from attacking the legs like this, and Phil Ferraro is giving us a really good lesson on how to punish somebody for attacking the legs, but, you know, a submission only requires a tap, and then it's over. So Phil Ferraro's got to be on his guard at all times here because Wheeler can attack from any angle.
And Phil Ferraro is peppering him with the shots. I mean, they're accruing points, but they're not so much damaging. What's he trying to do with those peppering shots, and how is he trying to use that to his advantage?
Well, one way I see it is that if you're defending, you're not attacking. So if Wheeler is getting comfortable on the ground with his submission attacks, Phil Ferraro needs to be very active and punish him and kind of get him off balance a little bit. And Phil Ferraro by no means is out of the deep water here. His leg is still trapped. But as I said this, gets himself out and, but then again, back to full guard.
Both fighters having a win apiece on their record, looking for their second win. If you had to make the bold statement, who do you think's taking this one, Jackson? A little early to call, but I'm going to ask you to call your shot.
Well, based on what I've seen so far, Phil Ferraro is clearly the dominant fighter. However, Brandon Wheeler is relentless in his submission attacks. And so that's the beauty about submissions. You only need to be right once.
And 30 seconds left in this round. Not looking like Brandon Wheeler's going to take this round, but, you know, we still got two more left.
Yeah, and like I said, you only need to be right once with those submissions, but two more rounds. He's going to have his back against the ropes a little bit going into the second and third rounds if he continues this performance. You know, we don't want to get in a position where, as a fighter, we need to make these Hail Mary attempts to try to win the fights. We want to be tactical and really set ourselves up for success in those later rounds.
5 seconds left, and Wheeler's trying for that arm bar. Doesn't look. That's the end of the round. Wow.
Literally saved by the bell.
Yes. Saved by the bell. Couldn't have been said any better. It looked like Ferraro was about to tap there.
You know, I think when he heard that 10-second warning, he got a little maybe relaxed. And Wheeler, like I said, he's dangerous. He only needs to be right once.
Now let's talk about the corners right now. If you're in the corner of Brandon Wheeler, what are you saying to your fighter?
You know, that's tough because his coach may be wanting him to take this approach where he's attacking from the bottom, attacking from every position.
All right, let's check out our replay, Jackson. Let's take it through.
Well, here we see, this is sort of the story of this first round. Phil Ferraro with an early takedown and getting a dominant position on the back. Wasn't able to capitalize, but maintained pressure on top and accrued a lot of points with these short, damaging blows.
Phil Ferraro looking like he's up 1 round with those shots and escapes, getting ready for round 2 with Phil Ferraro in the black trunks and Brandon Wheeler in the red. Referee making sure they're good to go. Cage door closes. Here we go, round 2. Both fighters starting with kicks, one of which makes Ferraro slip. He wasn't hurt by that.
That could be tough to sort of come back from. So, you know, if you're throwing these body kicks, you're really putting yourself in a position of tenuous balance where you could slip and fall at any time. And one thing that you learn as a mixed martial arts fighter is that the ring decals, the cage decals, can be extremely slippery. So when I was fighting, I would always make sure that I was not standing on one of those decals when I threw a kick.
Now, can you tell us what Shorty Rock is looking at right now?
You know, I mean, he's in between rounds. Shorty Rock is very similar to Brandon Wheeler in his relentless attack with submissions. So he's giving Phil Ferraro some great advice on how to just stay out of those leg locks, how to stay out of those arm bars. So you'll notice Phil Ferraro is probably keeping his elbows in real tight, at least he should be. Keeping his head in the center and looking to get out of that dangerous guard.
Looking for the high guard here. Nice scramble. Now with that high guard, what can you accomplish with that that's so different from a regular guard?
Well, you're sort of halfway up to an armbar.
Yeah.
So if you were to attempt an armbar from just a basic low guard, you got to cover a lot of distance. But with the high guard, all you got to do is make a small adjustment, angle off, and you know you're in a really great position to finish the fight. Phil Ferraro really needs to be bringing his elbows in and get his hands off the mat. He's isolating his arms. He's letting Brandon Wheeler keep him in his guard.
Now, being the pro fighter, can you tell some of the fans at home one of the most sacrificing things that you have to do to maintain being a top stellar pro athlete?
Oh, wow. Man, there's so many things. Probably just discipline and consistency. You know, fights are won in practice. They're won with good training, good diet, and a lot of patience. You know, not everything has to be 100% in practice. So where I see a lot of these professional fighters sort of falter is that they think that every sparring session needs to be, you know, the UFC championship fight. But if you have a good progressive camp with smart coaches and you're smart about your approach to your training, you can go very, very, very far. And Phil Ferraro is a great example of that. Somebody who's been fighting for close to 9 years at this point, no major injuries, very active, and a very strong skill set on the ground, standing up and everywhere in between.
Now, I've talked to many fighters in the past that say that, you know, they've sacrificed relationships, they sacrifice friendships, and, you know, like family endeavors they have to miss out on. That has to truly show your passion for the sport if you're willing to give up all of that just for competition.
Well, you know, it's not just for competition, it's for your legacy, it's for your dream. It's for, you know, the sacrificing so that you can achieve something and be greater than you are. And, you know, it's kind of, and here this fight is happening in a stand-up and Phil Ferraro taking the back with a beautiful transition to the back. But to address your earlier point, in the back when we did our interviews, we asked everybody about their outside hobbies and most of them said none. Because you really have to be that focused on your goal if you want to get anywhere in the sport.
Speaking of hobbies, one person that did mention was Brandon Wheeler, who said he's into traditional European martial arts, including weapons.
Yeah, I think he needs to focus a little bit more on his jiu-jitsu. He's got his back taken here, threatened with the rear naked choke. and his hand trap. This is sort of BJ Penn style, the way Phil Ferraro has his leg laced over Wheeler's arm. That sort of isolates that arm and makes it difficult for him to use it defensively. But Wheeler, the jiu-jitsu pro that he is able to sort of finagle his way out of that position.
It looks like Ferraro's trying to set up the arm triangle, but he has his leg stuck, so he can't switch over. Oh, now back to full guard.
You know, it was sort of a half-hearted attempt, but as I said, if you're attacking, that means they're defending. So, although Brandon Wheeler was able to escape a submission, he wasn't able to improve his position or attack on his own, and that's a smart approach from Ferraro to be so relentless with his attacks, to keep Wheeler on the defensive here so he can't get a rhythm and feel comfortable with his own submission attacks.
And even if you don't get the submission, you know, like you said, you're the one that's attacking, and that's what the judges see.
Yeah, I mean, they see top control and they see damage. And right now, Ferraro, even though he's sort of in a difficult position here, he can be attacked at any time, is really looking to drop some damage with those punches and elbows. Oh, wow, inverted triangle here. This is bad.
He's out. That did look bad for a minute, but Phil Ferraro is tough as nails. 10 seconds left.
You know, I'm really enjoying this fight. I'm seeing so much technical groundwork. We often don't see that in mixed martial arts. So kudos to these guys. They're putting an awesome show on for the fans.
All right, let's hear it from a commercial break. All right, fans, we're back for round 2 in our second bout of the evening. We have Brandon Wheeler against Phil Ferraro. Phil Ferraro in the black trunks, Brandon Wheeler in the red. Jackson, what'd you think about the first round?
Well, here's the thing with Brandon Wheeler. He's really, really good at jiu-jitsu, and although it translates in mixed martial arts, he's almost too good at jiu-jitsu for his own good when it comes to fighting in the cage. He's a little too comfortable in positions that open him up to strikes, and so the tale of this fight so far is Phil Ferraro just punishing Brandon Wheeler for his mistakes on the ground. And Phil hasn't done anything special. He hasn't done anything flashy. He's just been grinding away for those first 2 rounds, attacking Brandon Wheeler where he's vulnerable and racking up the points.
Now, we're constantly stacking, you know, like you said, Phil Ferraro is. Who would you say is more tired at this point? Because, you know, constantly grinding, that's also tiring. Constantly trying to fight off your back in your defense mode, also tiring. How would you say this is playing out now, and who's the more tired fighter?
Well, I've always considered the guard to be a position where you can rest. So you can sort of rest in the guard. And we see Brandon Wheeler slowing down right now. Phil Ferraro has had to maintain a relentless pace in this fight, so I'm sure he's extremely tired, but as a professional fighter, knowing that he's going to be fighting a jiu-jitsu champion, I'm sure he's trained for this, and he looks just as fresh as he did in the first round.
We're seeing a little bit of blood right now. Where is that coming from, Jackson? I don't have the proper...
It's hard to tell. Smart money would be on Brandon Wheeler is opened up with one of those punches or elbows from Phil Ferraro.
Brandon Wheeler was walking the cage looking for the armbar. Phil Ferraro wasn't having one bit of it.
Phil Ferraro's doing a smart thing. He's killing the clock right now, controlling the position. Brandon Wheeler's, he's got to explode. He's got to show something. He's got to show that he wants to finish this fight. What he's been doing has not been working. And I said earlier, you only have to be right once, but you know, it doesn't look like he's on the right path right now.
Great scrambles on the ground so far. Like you said, just very, very skilled BJJ. And you know, some fans at home, they might not know what they're seeing. They might be a little bored with it, but this is actually very, very talented and very hard to do, and very world-class at that.
Yeah, you know, when you're not getting punched in the face, jiu-jitsu becomes a whole different animal. You can be very offensive off your back. You can rest in certain positions. You can attack the legs with impunity. But this is mixed martial arts, and with a guy like Phil Ferraro, who's been fighting for nearly a decade, he knows the difference and the nuances of these positions in the mixed martial arts context. And so Brandon Wheeler, again, relying a little bit too much on that sport jiu-jitsu style, and he's getting punished for it.
And, you know, fans often wonder, you know, what do these guys do outside of the cage? They can't just train 24/7. And we talked about Brandon Wheeler's hobbies, and Phil Ferraro, when talking about his hobbies, simply said fantasy football.
Fantasy football, well, he said he was also up lifetime, so I guess he's okay at it. But, you know, he's making smart bets in fantasy football, and he's made some smart bets in this fight, keeping it competitive but dominant for himself. And his coaches must be very proud of him right now because he is being put to the test with his jiu-jitsu and coming out on top every single time.
The one prediction that he did not get is he said he was going to take it first round TKO. Phil Ferraro did. Obviously not the case.
Well, you know, it's tough. The guard position that Wheeler has been in for pretty much the entire fight is literally a defensive position in mixed martial arts. Initially in jiu-jitsu, the guard was the best position you could be on your back to mitigate damage from strikes. And so Brandon Wheeler's done a really good job of not getting too badly hurt, but that's at the expense of, you know, exploding and getting on top and winning the fight.
The referee is clean enough and he's standing him back up. Let's see how they engage, Jackson.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that stand-up. Phil Ferraro's been doing a really good job of staying just active enough on top. But, you know, Shaolin, who am I to argue with one of the greatest, you know, jiu-jitsu and MMA fighters of all time? So if he says stand up, I'm on the train, I'm on the bandwagon that way.
We got 30 seconds left in this second round with Brandon Wheeler on top in the black, blue and red trunks and Phil Ferraro on bottom with the black trunks.
Good. I mean, Phil Ferraro getting a taste of his own medicine right now. Short elbows to the face, but I don't think it's going to be enough for Brandon Wheeler to steal this round.
5 seconds left.
Not at all. Nice fight.
Great round. Great round for both fighters. Let's talk about the fight real quick, Jackson. It took place mostly on the ground. You're a phenomenal jiu-jitsu artist yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about the fight?
Well, you know, the story of this fight has been Brandon Wheeler's jiu-jitsu. Whether it's been good or bad for him, that's what he was relying on. And this is very reminiscent of, you know, early UFCs when guys came in with strict one-dimensional styles. And Brandon Wheeler, no offense to him, he's a great jiu-jitsu fighter in his own right, but his mixed martial arts skill set is limited, and Phil Ferraro exploded that.
Judge Holland scores the fight 30-27. Judge Krowick scores the fight 29-28. Judge Ruggiero scores the fight 29-28 for the winner by unanimous decision in the red corner, Phil Ferraro.
Great contest between Brandon Wheeler and Phil Ferraro. We have a unanimous decision for Phil Ferraro. Let's go up to our ring announcer, Bob Maloney.
Phil Ferraro, that was really a grind-out victory. You were basically in a dominant position most of the fight. Tell us how you're feeling right now.
Feeling good. Glad I got the W. And, you know.
Well, I know you roll with some really high-level guys, Brian McLaughlin over there, Sean Shorty Santella, Jim Miller, so I know you're rolling with some really serious guys. Tell us how that prepares you for a grind-out victory like this. It kind of makes the fight easy when you talk about rolling with guys like that in the gym.
Yeah, every day I'm rolling with 4 or 5 black belts. Makes it easy when you come in to fight against a jiu-jitsu guy. I know I'm ready for anything he's got from the ground.
There you go, Phil Ferraro with the victory.